I'm Stephanie Filardi. Welcome to Mind the Gap, the podcast. I believe many people fall short of living the life of their dreams simply because they get stuck in what I call the gap. The vision behind this podcast is to help you understand how to navigate the gap and in the process, awaken to the life that is waiting for you. It starts now. Let's go. Welcome to the podcast, Mind the Gap. It's nice to have you back. Let's take a moment to breathe. 3 conscious breaths. Wherever you are, take a moment to inhale and then exhale out of your mouth. Let it go. Again, inhale, filling up. Exhale, release and let go. And then one more time, big breath in, filling up. And then big exhale out of the mouth, let it go with a ha. Today's topic is relationships. You might need to take another breath after I said the word relationships. So the intention is to speak about relationships in terms of the transitions that all of us who are living face. Some of the transitions we experience in relationship, entering relationships, exiting relationships, and also some of the emotions we may experience. I recognize this might be a sensitive topic for some, and I invite you to listen with an open mind and with an open heart, no matter what your relationship experience has been. In my own work, in my own life, as well as my work with clients, I recognize that many of us experience at some point in time stress as it relates to relationships. It could be anything from the stress of a relationship ending, so whether it's a divorce or a death, it could be relationships that end because we want them to and it's healthy, or perhaps we had no control. Other examples of transitions in relationships are about new relationships. So maybe it's that new love or it's a marriage. And oftentimes when we go through these relationship changes, even when it's happy and wonderful, such as a marriage or a new beginning, we also may find ourselves challenged by what that comes with. So for example, in-laws, or maybe a friend group or a work group. So the intention behind this podcast is to have a real conversation with you about what actually happens to us and how sometimes we get caught. So we get stuck in that place that I call the gap when we go through these beginnings and endings. Before I talk a little bit more deeply about the topic, something in my own life that I have found to be profoundly helpful is this question that I ask myself, which is, what is the point of a relationship? Like, what is really my view of relationships? And when I speak of the word relationships, I mean all relationships. Not just the romantic loved ones, all of them. So whether they're with our family, our friends, our coworkers, in life, everything to me is about relationships. And I feel that it's the one area of life that perhaps we don't learn about in school. It's something that many of us have to learn about on our own. So when I look at relationships, I truly feel that relationships are teachers. I really believe that everybody who comes into my life, from the family that I was born into, to the love relationships that I've had, to other relationships that extend from that, are an opportunity to learn about myself. Now, I've shared on other podcasts that I meditate. I do like a fair amount of alone time. However, my best learning and growth has actually come from being in relationships and from being in the most challenging relationships. Yes. So, the human tendency is to avoid what we perceive as pain. And when I speak of challenging relationships, I'm speaking of relationships that really provoke us to grow. A quote that I'm going to share with you now to kind of set the stage for this comes from A Course in Miracles, and it says, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." I'm going to say it again. So really listen with your heart. Maybe if you're in a situation where you can close your eyes, of course you're not driving or doing anything. So just take a moment to take these words in once again. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that quote, of course, can be applied to any area of our life where we perceive it as a challenge. So part of this conversation and this podcast, this opportunity to awaken, is to really help us learn how to see something with new eyes. It doesn't mean we deny the difficulty, or in situations if there's abuse of any kind. It's not denying what is. It's looking at the situation, instead of looking at it as an obstacle, it's transmuting that into an opportunity. So as it relates to relationships, when I look at relationships in general, I see them as teachers, and I see them as opportunities to learn more about myself, and quite frankly, to learn more about how to love myself. I have found in speaking with people, especially in my shamanic energy healing practice, oftentimes people come to me and they're longing for love. So they're longing for either a deepening of their current love relationship, or perhaps they've recently gotten out of a relationship that was no longer working for them, and they're really looking for this deep soul love connection. And in my experience, that deep loving soul connection starts with loving ourselves. So when we're able to look at relationships as teachers and as an opportunity to learn and to grow, what ends up happening in the process is that we actually learn how to love ourselves. We actually learn how to say, wait a second, this doesn't serve me. I need to speak up, or I need to take a rest today. So it gives us the opportunity to really figure out and nourish what it is that we need. And when we do that, we're actually better able to love somebody else. So as I speak today on this podcast, I encourage you, in the moments when maybe you're noticing yourself kind of pointing a finger at somebody else, or saying, oh, well, only if that person was this or that, just take a moment to pause and say, well, what can I do, right? So Gandhi said, be the change. Be the change. And several years ago, when I was going through one of my yoga teacher trainings, it was a transformational module, which I love. So it was the deep dive work where I knew I was going to be provoked and challenged, and I signed up for it because I was afraid. And I realized if I keep going towards the things that I am afraid of, eventually I'll have a lot less fear and a lot more fun and freedom. So I signed up for this transformational module, and one of the invitations from the teacher was to spend a year in a love experiment. So we were encouraged to choose someone in our life who was really hard to love, someone in our life who we had contact with. So this was someone who was still alive, someone that we had to engage with. So perhaps it was a family member, right? Or someone in our life that we were close to. And he gave us the challenge to really love them unconditionally. Unconditionally, meaning without condition, no matter what. And I took the challenge, and I, over the course of the 12 months, learned how to love myself. And in the process, learned how to love this other person unconditionally. It didn't mean that I didn't get upset at times, or was frustrated, or wanted to give up. What it did mean was that it continued to help me grow. It helped me realize the amount of attachment, expectation, and judgment that I place on other people, and in particular, this person. And what I realized was that I placed that same amount of attachment, expectation, and judgment on myself. So this is the part of the conversation where it comes back to accepting our feelings, right? So what I have learned is that we experience the full range of human emotion. All of us do. However, the difference is that some of us accept it, honor it, and acknowledge it, and some of us don't because we're terrified. And I've done all of it. It took me many years to get angry, and I still have a hard time getting angry because I am the peaceful, loving yogi, right? So I need to always be happy and loving and kind. Well, that doesn't always work in the world. Sometimes you need to get angry because anger is a sign that maybe something is out of alignment. But truly, the anger being expressed in a healthy way is a teacher, right? So if I'm in relationship with somebody, as an example, and I'm expressing what my needs are, I need to be heard or I need to be understood, and I feel that the person completely is either disinterested or unwilling, then I have the right to get angry. That's a healthy emotion. So part of this process over that year where I was engaged in this love experiment of loving this person unconditionally taught me how to get angry. It taught me how to communicate from a loving place, which is another part of this relationship conversation is communication. And this goes across, again, all relationships. I call it conscious communication. And many of us are not taught how to express our feelings in a way that's healthy. So some of us have grown up in situations where maybe we've seen a complete repression of emotions. Others may have grown up in a situation where it's been explosive and dramatic, right? So the intention behind the conscious communication is to come to a place of balance where we're able to speak about how we're feeling from a place of presence and also from a place of love. So over the course of the year where I was involved with this love experiment with this individual, I was able to have conversations from a place of love. So when this person perhaps acted what I will call unconsciously, so when someone does something that I feel is hurtful, instead of blaming them, I give them the benefit of the doubt and say that perhaps it was just unconscious. They didn't realize it because I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they wouldn't do it intentionally. So when I was in this experiment and something would happen where I would find myself getting triggered by this individual, instead of perhaps withdrawing, which was a tendency of mine, avoiding, not wanting to deal, or perhaps if I was really pushed to the limit, exploding, which quite frankly neither feel good and neither solve anything, I was able to take the time to disengage from what happened. So I took the space to process what happened. And then I was able to discern what's really going on here. Is this something that I really am getting upset about that's valid, that's legitimate, or is this just an old pattern? And once I was clear on that, by taking the space and by discerning what was really happening, I was able to make a decision about, is this a conversation that I need to have? So I will give you an example in a moment. So once you're able to take some space to discern what's going on, then you can make a decision, a conscious choice about how you're going to respond instead of react, and then you take action. One of my favorite words, this podcast is also about helping you to get back into a place of action. Coming from a place of consciousness, coming from a place of love, coming from a place where the actions that you're taking are creating more situations that are going to support your growth. So this situation was this individual that I was dealing with had a tendency of sometimes hanging up on me when they didn't like an answer. So like, let's say I was asked to do something and I said, no, I'm not able to do that. This person would take it very personally and hang up on me. And I experienced this behavior for many, many years. So to me, it was kind of normal. It was kind of like, oh, okay, they hung up on me. And I just kind of, I would feel badly. I would withdraw, and then I would end up talking myself out of it, saying, okay, well, maybe they were just having a bad day and I need to be the bigger person, and, just all that stuff. I'm a loving person. I'm a yogi. I meditate. I have all these tools. I can, blow it into my crystal, burn some incense, so blah, 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 until it actually just started to feel bad. And it actually started to feel like abusive. So what I decided to do, I decided that the next time that happened, which of course I knew it would, I decided that I was going to have a different response. So like clockwork, it happened. I was on the phone. I said no, and I got hung up on. So I let it happen. A few hours later, I called this person back and I said, hi, I have something to share with you. Is this a good time? And I got the yes. I got yes. So I proceeded from a very calm state. I had written out what I wanted to say. And basically what I said was, earlier today when we were speaking and I said no, you hung up on me. That really hurt. I feel that you love me. And when you hung up on me, it actually made me feel like you didn't love me. So it confused me. It didn't make sense to me. It actually made me feel pretty bad. So I understand perhaps you were having a bad day or you were frustrated. I understand that. However, I ask that if you're not having a good day, that perhaps it's best not to call me, because I don't deserve that. And I really believe that you didn't mean it. And that if you really knew how much it hurt me, that you wouldn't do it. So I'm going to ask that when you are feeling that way, that perhaps it's best not to call me, and that if I say no, that you honor and respect my choices. And if you don't, I'd actually rather not speak with you at all. I love you very much, and I appreciate your understanding. So, was I shaking having the conversation? Absolutely. Was it massively uncomfortable for me? Absolutely. It was the first time with this individual that I was able to own my power and use my voice. And I did it from a very loving and calm way. The person ended up apologizing, and the relationship at that point started to take a different turn. So it started to take a different turn in that behavior since that time happened one other time, when it used to happen on a fairly regular basis. So the reason why I share that with you is because I know that all of us, no matter what kind of relationships we have, at some point in time have to face people who perhaps are disrespectful, who maybe drain our energy, who perhaps just don't understand or respect us as people. A couple things I'll say about that is that it's not personal. I know that's hard when it's being directed at us to feel that it's not personal, but it's not personal. So if you can remember that perhaps will help you take the time and space you need to disengage and to discern what's really happening, right? The other thing to remember is that it's really easy to get caught up in the drama and the negativity and the fighting, so to speak. And at the end of the day, in my experience, it only makes us feel worse. So sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to do nothing, is to say nothing, is to literally disengage, meaning separate ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever we can do until we're really clear on what's happening, until we get to that place where we feel calm and we feel loving and we're able to express ourselves from a place of clarity and compassion. So that's my example, one of many, of really being able to look at a relationship in my life that I had struggled with, that was very painful at times, but a relationship that I really wanted to do this love experiment with because it was with a person that I did want in my life, right? And believe me, there have been times when I questioned, do I want this person in my life? And there were very real moments where I said no. But ultimately, if we are choosing to be in relationship with people, then we have to learn how to navigate those relationships. And the most important thing I can say is the relationship you have with yourself and how you want to show up. And in life, I know that I want to show up from a place of love, and that when I leave an encounter with somebody, I want to add to their day. I don't want to take away from their day. It doesn't mean I have to be loving and doting. Maybe it's just being silent. Maybe it's being simply smiling. But whatever it is for you, I encourage you to start to think about that. Maybe there is a relationship in your life that you're struggling with, and maybe the invitation for you today in terms of taking action is to say, okay, how can I do a love experiment with this person? Maybe it's 7 days. It doesn't have to be a year. But how can you perhaps step back and change the way you look at the relationship? So looking at it from a larger view as an opportunity to learn something about yourself. So instead of making it about them and what they do and how they make you feel, what do you need? What do you need to feel good? What do you need to feel good? So that is my invitation for you today, is to take a look at your life, look at your relationships, maybe find a relationship that you're struggling with that's been a challenge, and see how you can unconditionally love this person for 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, whatever works for you, and try it. And I'll be honest, when I tried this love experiment, I committed to 30 days. And I said, I'll do it for 30 days because my brain and my heart needed to know I could have an out. And that's perfectly normal and acceptable. And it's healthy. So be in tune with yourself. The last thing I want to say is, in my life, I have been blessed to have a handful of relationships, love relationships. So people that I've seen married, and also just people that are, single, who really have, I guess, modeled unconditional love. So loved me no matter what, and were always there for me. So, and not all of them are blood relations. Actually, most of them were not. So if you have people like that in your life, think of them, channel their energy, learn from them, watch them. It could be a public figure. It doesn't matter who it is. The point is, the people in life who we are most attracted to, whether because we admire them or because they annoy us, you have the most to learn from. So this isn't all about negative relationships and challenges, although that's where most of us get stuck in the gap and lose energy and life force, and then we miss out on our own life. We also can learn from people who do it really well. So I encourage you to keep those people in mind, and maybe even ask yourself, what would they do? How would they respond? That's the invitation. Your life is precious. Don't waste your time. Invest it in yourself. Invest it in people who teach you how to be better, get the support you need, and have fun with it. As I mentioned, relationships are one of my favorite topics, and I believe mostly because I've spent a lot of time studying, learning, and I want people to be happy. I know that sounds like a very lofty, idealistic goal, but it's legitimate. It's a lot more enjoyable to be around people that like themselves and like each other. So I guess there's a selfishness piece in that too, in that I really feel that a lot of people struggle because they're not willing to maybe look at themselves and take responsibility. Having said that, I want to encourage you, if you have a story to share or you'd like to be a guest, because this conversation about relationships is going to continue. So if you would like to join the podcast as a guest, or you have a contribution, or you have a question about something I've said or something you're interested in learning about, or you have a success story, anything at all that moves you, if I've moved you in some way, and also if I've pissed you off, that's cool too. I'll take that because that's where we learn. Then I encourage you to email me at Stephanie@BronxvilleWellness.com. That's Stephanie, STEPHANIE at Bronxville Wellness, BRONXVILLE wellness.com. And don't worry, I will respect your privacy. If you do not want to be known, not a problem. That's all. Let's go.